Welcome, friends. So this is a episode on my take on the what's happening with K culture and Hallyu Wave. I'm naming this to be called Arirang Renaissance, and so then the idea is that the that starting with the BTS's release of the album, that will kind of trigger I think a more global awareness of K culture, um, and I think that this is one of those important historical events that has a global impact. Okay, so the global impact I think is happening within let's say the global cycles that are happening. I think around the world, and I believe that in that context with BTS Arirang, what it means, and then the some cultural philosophy, and then how that's pervasive through some of the K culture, such as K-pop, K-drama, K-food. I think that that's going to really have a worldwide impact. And I think looking back on this, decades from now, I think we'll be calling that as the like a pivotal moment. I think where K culture just become obviously global and not just under the hood, but becoming more prevalent and salient. I think around the world. So we can talk a little bit about global cycles. Essentially, it's there's like many cycles as we learn. I think as from school around the four seasons, and then you have oxygen cycles or water cycles. But from civilization cycles, there's also a couple of those. And right now, we're kind of going through some winter cycles where there's a transition from an old to new. And one of them is things like generation cycles, right, which is like 80 to 100 years. And right now, we're on the fourth turning, which is the end of the this 100 years year cycle. And so then he feels like things are changing and a lot of chaos. And then once that's over, then there will be more spring and whatnot. So last time we went through this was World War One and World War Two. And then there's also the debt cycle, right, which is where there's a historical accumulation of debt. And then there's a reset, and then there's a new cycle to accumulate. And so we're kind of like coming up on the ending of that. And then the one major one is a empire cycle, which is about 250 years. And 2026 is the 250th anniversary of the founding of the U.S. So the U.S. empire, I think, as going through the cycle that it's getting near the end of that cycle, or at least the peak of it, and so then there's might be a decline that's coming up. Like other empires, like the British Empire and Spanish Empire, and all these other ones. Recent ones have also been going through that as well. And then there's also the conjunctive wave cycle, which is about 40 to 60 years, um, and so then we finished more recent one, which is like the more like the internet and mobile and connectivity sort of technologies um, that have allowed for increase in productivity and whatnot, right? And then the more recent one, which is the AI and some biotech. These are kind of nascent and just starting out. And so then we're in that sort of transitional period. So there might be some little bit of chaos essentially. So these are the global cycles, and so there's a lot of angst, I think, and chaos that people feel, and um, and I think that's the sort of stage, or let's say the world, right, where there's more conflicts and uncertainty that's kind of being built into the world itself. So so within that context, right, there's the uh, K culture, which is a philosophy that brings like a message of resilience, hope, and celebration. And these are based on three major pillars, like Han, um, which is about suffering and resilience and how you overcome difficulties, and then Jung, which is like a community sort of connection, right? That as human beings you have a connection with other human beings. And then the other one is Hung, which is to celebrate after overcoming all these sort of a connections or suffering. And then with the connections, then you're kind of getting together, or let's say longing for people that you love, and you get together and then you celebrate. And so these sort of like three pillars are pervasive throughout the Korean culture, and one of the ways in which that people express these three emotions is through this folk song called Arirang. And so this Arirang is like a 600-year-old Korean folk song where there's 60 versions and 30,000 variations. And essentially, it's a way for people to express themselves, right, as they go through life and whatnot. Okay, so BTS like naming their new album as Arirang, I think it has all those philosophical bases, which is Han, Jung, and Hung, and it's about their celebration essentially to come back and being happy about that and celebrating with their fans around the world. And so we would expect that the actual album itself and the whole point of the world tour and whatnot is to really share those all those moments, right? The suffering, the resilience, and then the chunk of community coming together, and then the celebration of those overcoming, essentially, of things together. And I think that's why one of the taglines, for this comeback is like, what is your love song? Because it's not just BTS, I think, talking about their own emotions, but also emotions of the fans and the army itself. So one of the things to talk a little bit about as well, like about BTS's approach, I think, to K-pop. So RM's APAC or CEO speech back in October 28th, 2025, he mentioned that K-pop is like bibimbap, where like you mix different aspects of different cultures and you put them together, and then you are making a great, dish that can be enjoyed by anybody. But then each of the ingredients, right, it doesn't melt or change. It's just are brought together, into a one dish. And I think um, that is essentially how K-pop in general, right, has processed things. I think, especially with BTS, is because they try to bring in different elements of different cultures, and then they try to put them together into a story, right, about either Han, Jung, or Hung, and that actually resonates with people, right, because it's you can still see the emotions and um, their storyline, right, and then that kind of be reflected, I think, with each individual's. So yeah, you should go and definitely check out the RM's full speech because it's about how K-pop can, with this aspect of K-pop, it changes the world itself, which is kind of aligned with the whole global impact, I think, of what BTS, their comeback is all about. So then you can let's look at an example for K-pop, right? So in K-pop, like Han is usually like um, how let's say the K-pop group itself, they go through some trials and then they are like go through a bunch of cuts and all this training that's intense, and then there are a lot of challenges, right, to being an idol. And so then by having the groups share that with their fans, that's actually like sharing their Han and the resilience that creates that sort of a impact. And then there's also the group's unity, and then there's community that the groups are creating, with their fans. And so then it's all about Chung, right? Like, and then how you get that Chung is also by fans, learning their dances and doing different types of um, like fan meetups and song and dance covers, vlogs. So all these activities are actually going back and forth between um, the K-pop groups and their fans. And then of course, Hung is about the celebration of like all these emotions, about how like you're creating this sort of community and event, and so the fans themselves are having a lot of fun together, like meeting new people, creating communities, and then you have this fan chants and like things like random play dance, where they're like learning their dances and having fun with those, and I think that creates a great community. So you have things like fan meetings, you have random play dances. So you can see that I think around the world. And then you have and some examples like obviously like BTS, Blackpink, like Baby Monster, 17, and many others, right? That are K-pop groups, and they all have their fans, and they have their own sort of meetups and different events, and you can see how these communities are being created based on people's preferences. And so you can also see some variety shows, where you get to see different aspects of the team members of the group, and they're each individual members. They get some interviews and they play some games, and so you can actually see a different sides to them. So when you have K dramas, right? Like it's same. A lot of the stories are the characters have like go through underdog stories. Like you can get injustice from parents, CEOs, managers. So then there's all these suffering that happens, and then they try to be resilient, solving problems, and then they usually do it with some sort of a friend or group or whatnot, where you have chung, right? You create that sort of community, whether it's just two people or whether like with 10 people. And then there's also scenes where you have this hung where you're celebrating, right? In terms of small wins and or um, trying to cheer up like promotions and things like that. And so then you have these successes and you just have fun um, within a group. So like, and then some of the examples I think of that really shows these three emotions is like is K-drama such as like Itaewon Class, like Attorney Woo or Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha, and you can really see that sort of Han, Jung, and Hung, where each of the main characters are going through some sort of a suffering and resilience, and then you have this community development that happens, and then the sometimes the celebration, right, of successes. I think that can happen. So there's a lot of that tragedy, community, and celebrations. I think that happens in these K dramas, and those are the ones that like makes I think people can relate, to those feelings, and these are like very real and not like philosophical or something in the distance or fairy tale like, but it just seems like more of a something that can happen to you, right? It seems a little more real and immediate. And so, lastly, with K-food, it seems like maybe it might not be easy to see, uh, not as easily as in K-pop or K-drama, but food actually, K-food is also embodies this, right? Like the like Han aspect of K-food is that a lot of the foods were developed because of necessity, right? Hardships and trying to be resilient, right? Kimchi was developed and all the other pickle foods to survive the harsh winter and being able to preserve that food and survive. And so that's why Koreans food have a lot of pickled foods. And then another example is like budae, which is like an army soup, and it was developed after the Korean War, where the American GIs had all these rations, and Koreans had to try somehow make a dish out of it, right, to survive. And so then they created this budae, to be shared among their family and friends, and then be able to eat those. So and then Chong is um, in a way like how we have panchan with all these side dishes, and so it's a way to share like many different types of food, so that you have a variety and you don't get bored, right? And it's a way to celebrate. You can try to make your own and try to create your own variations and whatnot. So that way you are basically being hospitable and not just serving up something that was a like that everybody makes, but it's something special uh, for your guests, right? Because you made it specially for your guest, so that you're thinking of them and trying to come up with new ways of making it easier. And then Hung is obviously that when you're celebrating, um, and so when you have a kind of get together and having food, that it could be because of of happy occasions, or it could be because of you have new people that you haven't seen in a while, like getting together with some friends, or that it's because of sad and other events, things like funerals and whatnot. So it's so depending upon the occasions, you could actually have different type of foods or different type of feeling right as you're eating the food itself. And there's a couple of what is it cultural um, cultural sort of aspects, I think, to eating. So like one of them is pouring alcohol, right? That you're not supposed to pour the alcohol to for yourself. Usually, right? Because it's a way to have that chung with like other people. And so the idea is that you are serving each other, and then you are creating that community, right? Because if you just pour alcohol for yourself, then it's like there's no connection with anybody else. And many restaurants, they tend to give some free service, something small, like as a token to kind of say, hey, like thanks for coming, and then it creates that sort of a again like connection, right? Because it's not something that's transactional per se. It's like it's more of a free gift that you're getting. Um, and there's also some combinations that happens a lot with Korean food. You have like something like chimek, right? In terms of chicken and beer, and it's like a very common combinations that people tend to eat a lot. And same thing with like makgeolli and pajeon. And so the idea is that these are cultural like norms or well-known sort of combinations that happens, and so then people kind of go depending upon how they feel and what they're in for, or what they would like, and so it creates that um, again sort of cultural like connection and community. So that's why I'm thinking of this like again the K culture and then the K-pop, K-drama, and K-food. Um, that these have Hanjong and Hung throughout, right, in terms of the cultural philosophy or emotional aspects to K culture. And so then a lot of people I think can relate to all of those. And I think Arirang itself is a folk song, and I think that is a expression of all those that are like immediately easily relatable, just because it's a song and different people have sung this and with different emotions and different sort of circumstances, and I think it's a lot of it is definitely relatable, and I think that makes it um, a unifying sort of a concept. I think that can help to bring different cultures together for cooperation and in terms of being productive and uh, being able to go through these hard times, as as humanity goes forward. I think with our development. So the BTS Arirang, right? The name of the album and then the whole comeback. I think that is being will be. worldwide event, where everybody's also excited for the comeback itself. And then you can see that the on 320, which is the spring equinox, right, is when when they're releasing their album called Arirang. And then there's that Kwangwangmun, um, the free concert on 321, and they'll soon after go for a world tour. And so the free concert, right, is expected to have like 260 to 90,000 people in Seoul. And then you're expecting like about 30% will be foreigners, which is about 90,000, 80 to 90,000 people who will be there from outside of Korea. And the Netflix is going to be streaming that live. And so they're expecting somewhere around like 50 million viewers from 190 countries. And so there's like going to be a lot of people watching that live event. And the world tour afterwards, right, is like 34 cities across 5 continents, and they're expected to be like 5.2 million people total for this world tour. And I think this is about twice as more as their last world tour, before they took a hiatus. And so you're talking about a much larger event that's going to happen. And of course, um, Netflix, right, has a lot of other K content as well, right? That has the Hanjung and Hung around things like K drama, more K drama, but then there's also K variety shows and K food shows, like documentaries around Korean um, different type of foods, like kimchi and duck and gochujang and soju. And so there's a lot more, I think, content around, like a Korean content, I think that people can um, consume to learn more about it. So the Hallyu wave, that's been kind of building up, I think, for this Arirang um, event. So I call this Arirang Renaissance, just because of it'll become like um, pervasive, around the world, and then people can actually connect, right, with others, from different countries, different cultures coming together because of the Korean perspective of like making bibimbap, right, where you're mixing all these different things together and trying to create harmony or something that's great, easy to consume, and being able to come together, right? Because it's making connections where there normally without this, that would never have been made between fans for different K-pop groups and dramas and other things, right? Where they're coming together. So you don't need to go to Korea just to experience Korean culture. I think that there's a lot of Korean culture that's just being exported, and then there's more development happening, like restaurants or shops that sell like different, things from Korea, and you're able to experience that locally um, as well. So I think Arirang Renaissance, you could think of it as really like making bibimbap, right, from world cultures, and the glue that's putting them together is really the Korean culture that's helping to bring the other different cultures together. Okay, thank you for listening, and you can support Simple Like One. You can click like and subscribe, share videos, and you can buy me coffee if you'd like to support financially. So thank you. See you in the next one.